officers
have to
have
break in here
refused to
and
fight in the West Bank.
I'm going to have to let Governor Dean get his licks in here.
Let me just say a couple of things. First of all, I'm not convinced that John Kerry's running to George Bush's right. That's hard to do. Secondly, I think that if Ralph were as concerned about the war, and I think you are deeply concerned about the war, but then what was the reason for recommending that John Edwards be John Kerry's running mate when John Edwards also voted for the war? I didn't understand that at all.
Because everyone but you on the vice presidential slate, you weren't on for obvious reasons, Howard, because you were an insurgent who is now adopting the role of being a detergent of the dirty linen of the Democratic Party. Gephardt was for the war. Gephardt was for the war and so on. That's the answer to your question.
All right.
Also, Edwards is good on torts, on civil justice, and right Americans to sue.
Let's just see, if I'm going to be the detergent, let me explain why I think that that's necessary. Here's what makes me so passionate about this issue. It's not a dislike for third parties. I think third parties have contributed a lot. It's not a dislike for the platform that Ralph's talking about. I do have some concerns with the means to the end. But the real problem is that the people are going to suffer from your candidacy should you take more votes, as you did in 2004 from John Kerry than you did from Bush, are our people, your people and my people, and the people of the folks in this room. There are kids who are losing health insurance every day because of what George Bush is doing. If he gets reelected, those people are going to suffer. There are schools that are going down the tubes in inner cities and rural areas all over America. Those people are going to suffer if George Bush gets reelected. There are not just Americans dying every day in Iraq, there are Iraqis dying every day in Iraq. Those people are going to suffer if George Bush gets reelected. And so what I see in this candidacy is the perfect becoming the enemy of the good. The reason I chose not to run as a third party myself, which took me about 5 seconds to think about, after I had really endured the slings and arrows of having been the front runner of the Democratic nomination, is in the long run, it's not important that Howard Dean be president or that Ralph Nader be president. In the long run, this is about American people who can't defend themselves against the kind of administration that George Bush has. And that's why I wish you were on our team, Ralph, because we really need you.
Can I answer? I'd just like to say, what have the Democrats done about the poor in this country? What have they done about the criminal and justice system?
And I'll talk to you
corporate prisons.
They've
generated as many loopholes in the tax system for their corporate benefactors as anyone. Neither Howard Dean nor John Kerry will attack the military budget, which is swollen, redundant, and full of corrupt contracts that are eating half of the whole military budget now is 1/2 of the federal government's operating expenditures. That draws money away from clinics and schools and public drinking water systems and public libraries and public transit and the environment. And the Democrats are fully complicit. John Kerry will not challenge the bloated military, redundant military budget. And if he doesn't do that, he cannot pay for all those programs that Howard referred to so sympathetically. The Democrats haven't done anything on attacking corporate crime. They haven't done anything on corporate welfare. You look at John Kerry's website, there's nothing on corporate crime under crime. There's nothing on corporate welfare, bleeding hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayers from the necessity of the American people. Do not you put that rap on anyone. I could put it on you if I wanted.
Let's let Howard.
Let's talk about the future here and assume that we're all well-intentioned toward the American people.
Okay,
well,
I'm gonna.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
While you evaluate what Ralph Nader just said about the Democrats, just think about who put Medicare in here. Without a single Republican vote, everybody over 65 now has health insurance in this country because of Lyndon Johnson and the Democrats. Who did Medicaid? Children all over America have health insurance. Who did the Earned Income Tax Credit? You know who that was? It was Richard Nixon with Democratic support. It makes a big difference whether you have a Democratic or a Republican administration.
That was the old Democratic
All I'm asking is that we not let the perfect become the enemy of the good, because of this election it matters. I believe in most of the reforms that Ralph Nader talks about. He has been a hero of mine because of his exceptional, extraordinary career. But I am desperate to send George Bush back to Crawford, Texas, and we need your help in doing it.
Okay, I'm going to lighten things up a minute. Just take this away because we could continue this way all along. And I just want to ask you a couple of actually the most difficult questions you're going to face because they require really short answers. So are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, one sentence. Howard Dean, who is your favorite president?
Two, George Washington and Harry Truman, for different reasons, obviously.
And Ralph Nader, yours?
Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Jefferson.
Governor Dean, would you take a cabinet position in a Democratic administration if it was offered to you? Oh, you know, Health and Human Services, Surgeon General, you know.
I haven't made any deals like that, but if Ralph comes on board, maybe we can both get cabinet positions.
Well, that was my next question. If Senator John Kerry wins and asks you, Mr. Nader, to be head of the Environmental Protection Agency, would you take the job? You might get a pension.
No, no. Are you supposed to be impartial? The answer is no, because I want to be, after the election, what Howard Dean told me he wanted to be during the election when he lost the primaries, is to be a hair shirt for the Democrats, a real hair shirt, not a linen handkerchief.
If you could give Howard Dean, Mr. Nader, if you could give Howard Dean one piece of political advice, what would it be?
I would tell him to explain to the American people why Howard Dean I's comments on John Kerry, which were unbelievably searing, makes me look modest by comparison, why they are no longer part of Howard Dean II's political repertoire.
When you're running against somebody for office, the fact is that it's tough and you focus on the differences. When you're running as a team, you got to look at the fact that the difference between any of the 9 of us that ran for the presidency the difference between any of us are so small compared to the difference between us and George Bush that we are on the same team. We need to focus on one thing in this election, sending George Bush back to Crawford, Texas, and then we'll have a chance at instigating some of the reforms that we're both talking about.
Governor Dean, what one suggestion would you give Ralph Nader?
Lighten up.
Howard.
Well, that's better than what I thought he was going to say. Hey, listen, have you been on Saturday Night Live 4 times, Howard?
Are you kidding? I don't even dare go on the Daily Show.
Okay, Howard, in the last few weeks, the Boondocks comic strip featured the abduction of Ralph Nader. Justifying his action, the kidnapper in the strip said, "Don't you see, he's going to mess everything up just like he did the last time." Howard, is this the only way to stop Ralph Nader, to take him to an undisclosed location until November?
I don't think we ought to stop Ralph Nader. I just don't want you to vote for him because we need your votes for John Kerry so we can get rid of George Bush and then at least have a chance. At least have a chance at health insurance. John Kerry has publicly said that the first bill out of the White House, if he becomes president, is going to be health insurance for every single American. It seems to me that's worth waiting for and worth working for.
And last quick question. What's the worst campaign photo of you out there? The one that rivals Michael Dukakis in the tank, Gary Hart on the boat, the monkey business. Tell us about it, Mr. Nader.
You think I spend my time looking at those things? You know, we're being told by the Democrats to look at hair. John Kerry's hair and John Edwards' hair. Let's get back to corporate power in America.
Governor Dean, your worst photo.
Well, I don't know, but I'm sure if you look at the New York Times, you'll find one.
So we're now going to go back to more serious stuff. Let's go back to the audience.
Hi, my name's Lynn O'Connell. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. And my question is for Mr. Nader. It's very, very important to me that my vote count in this election, and I'd like to know what kind of plan you have for getting to 270 electoral votes.
Well, first of all, we're going to get on more than enough ballots to get that number of electoral votes. And second, we know that the system is rigged by the 2 parties, from ballot access to ballot harassment to exclusion from the debates, to give us a fair chance. So we're frankly a underdog campaign representing millions of underdogs in this country. People are pushed around, harmed, ignored, laid off without any reasons, arbitrarily defrauded. You know, all the things the mainstream press reports about, but then they don't conclude that there needs to be a real change here. So we're going to go all out. People want to vote for their conscience, fine. If they want to vote for us in the slam dunk states that are dominated by Republicans like Texas or Democrats like New York, that's fine. But just remember, after this election is over, that the Nader-Camejo ticket put forth an agenda of immense humanity and practical implementation that was long overdue and long ignored by both parties, and that we gave you the chance to vote your conscience. And if you don't vote your conscience, I'd like to hear from you about what part of your body you are voting.
Now, if a